Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jordy. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Good to see you this morning. All right, let's start
Yes,
yesterday.
sir.
Andre Evans. Glenn, I think this is a ripple. This is a decommitment that is going when this one crashes onto shore. This is going to have some effect, I believe, on the LSU football program. This is a desperate area of concern in defensive back. You're not having success inside the state, and now you're losing guys out of the state. What do you make of Evans' decommitment yesterday?
Yeah, so I mean, earlier this week we actually wrote a piece because 24/7 Sports released its latest top 247. Andre Evans jumped up from not even in the top 247 to number 106 overall in the country. He just made a meteoric rise in their latest rankings, and so much so that we felt like we had to write a piece on it. And as we were writing the piece, we were kind of hearing some rumblings here about this potentially being the case. And a couple days later, here he is, a Georgia commit, and LSU is out a very, very important piece of their 2024 class. You're absolutely right. This is a kind of class-changing decision here. I think LSU is going to have to really, I don't want to say scramble, but they're going to have to put some extra work in to make sure that they can recover from this because you're absolutely right. The secondary right now is the one position group, whether it's cornerback or safety, that you really, really have to get right with this class. I mean, there's some veteran guys at safety that you very well could be losing at the end of this year. Cornerback is still a pretty young room. They have some young guys in there that they need to develop this offseason, but you certainly would like to keep buffing that up with some talent and freshmen. And Andre Evans was going to be a huge piece of that. Now, you still have Juwan Johnson, you have Deshaun McBride, you have Kai Bates. You're going to need to hang on to those guys for sure. But I definitely think you're going to have to see LSU pivot here and try to bring in one or two more to really be comfortable with the kind of class they're bringing in the secondary for 2024.
Glenn, any idea of what may be the reasoning here? I mean, we're talking about LSU's defensive backfield. I mean, this is royalty in college football for 15 years. Why is it struggling so much right now?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of a number of things. I mean, I hate to beat the NIL, train here, but I think that NIL plays a very serious role in some of this stuff. I think the fact that I would say that a lot of these corners that LSU has been pursuing for much of this cycle, they could just take really one look at the field and say, hey, man, I could really have an opportunity to come in here and play early. So, in terms of Evans specifically, I don't know the specifics on what led to this decision. I know that LSU staff was probably expecting it. I think it was a little bit of a mutual deal here. I think that they kind of knew that this was kind of coming down the pike, and so I think that's why you've seen them go out and they've pursued a PJ Woodland recently who just decommitted. They've pursued a Bernard Causey who's currently committed to Ole Miss. They've stayed up on Terry Bussey, who is obviously the Texas A&M commit from a couple weeks ago. So those are kind of the three that I think you're looking at as potential replacements in this class for that secondary that they really are going to be pursuing. And it's a loss, though. I mean, Evans was one of the biggest risers that we've had in quite some time. And, I know LSU probably would have liked to have held on to him, but now you've got to pivot and you've got to be able to make this thing work because the secondary, the future of the secondary is still very much kind of up in the air right now, and they have a lot of work to do with that.
You brought up Bernard Causey. He's down there in New Orleans. LSU's made a push on him. What's his status right now?
They're trying to get him on campus. He's had a couple games the last couple Saturdays where they just haven't been able to get him on campus. So we'll see if he can make it up for the Auburn game. We don't know yet the specifics on if he's going to be able to make it up anytime soon, but I do know that LSU's pushing for him. This is the dead heat of flip season and guys that are programs that are coming in on guys here at the last couple seconds. So with about 2 months to go and about 60 days until the early signing period, I think you're going to see a lot of movement on a lot of different prospects that LSU's going to be making some final pushes for. Causey's going to be in that number, and I'd keep an eye on Terry Bussey too. I mean, I think that the fact that you lost such a highly rated player in Andre Evans, I'm sure there's a part of LSU that would like to make that up in a big splash way. And Bussey was on campus this last weekend, and It doesn't seem like anything's imminent there. Our Mike Roach at 24/7 says that it was a nice check-in kind of deal, and they're going to continue kind of keeping those lines of conversation open. But I think the fact that he was on LSU's campus less than 2 weeks after committing to Texas A&M, it shows you that there's still some interest there. And so I think LSU is going to continue to pursue the 5-star athlete out of Texas.
Glenn, any feedback on this past weekend from a recruiting standpoint? It feels like it was a huge weekend from a name brand standpoint, or at least the names on campus. What was some of the shakeout from it?
Oh, I mean, it was a huge weekend for the program, especially for the future. I mean, they had a number of 2025 and 2026 prospects, obviously headlined by Bryce Underwood, the quarterback. One of our colleagues, Bryce Coombs, actually able to spend about 15, 20 minutes talking with Underwood's family, and they were pretty blown away by the experience. And so, I do think that LSU's in the mix there for the 5-star quarterback out of Michigan. It's going to be we've always known it was going to be a tough sell to kind of lure him away from Michigan, which is about an hour away from where he lives currently. So, but LSU's made this place feel like home to him. It really sounds like his family and him are giving this a real thought, and we'll be interested to see, because he's got a commitment date set for January. We'll see if he's able to. If LSU's able to keep grinding away there. He's got a great relationship with Joe Sloan. But there were so many other guys that LSU had. I mean, DeCorian Moore was back on campus. They had offensive lineman Lamar Brown, who's a local kid here in 2026, going to be one of the best players in that class. You've got to be able to close on some of these big name in-state players. I mean, especially guys like Brown. You got Jakeem Stewart coming up here in the 2026 class. You've got 2025 guys like Harlem Berry that you really want to close on as well. James Simon, the 2 running backs there. So, they're getting a lot of these guys on campus, and they're doing a really good job of recruiting them. Now it's just about closing them and making sure that the future of your program's going to be in really, really good shape. Gabe
Relaford is the one that I want out of all of them right now, and he's the guy that's made a fast rise here in his senior season. I think LSU was a little late to the offering party, but now that they have caught up on all of that, where do they stand after getting him on campus again?
Yeah, they got him on campus, and I think it went as well as a visit like that could go. I mean, we've got a piece running this morning where I kind of dove into all the potential flip guys that LSU could be pursuing over the next several weeks, and with Relaford, it really just seems like you just got to continue to chop away that wood and kind of continue to build those relationships. I think the fact that he's talking with Jimmy Lindsey now. It sounds like Coach Lindsey's getting a little bit more involved with the recruits lately. It sounds like he's doing a little bit better and having some of those talks and conversations. So that's really, really important in all this as well. If you want to build up the defensive line, you've got to know that your D-line coach is set and is going to be able to kind of be there for the future for you. So a guy like Relaford, he's a Louisiana prospect. I think they would absolutely like to keep him in state and try to flip him there. But there are a number of Texas A&M commits currently that the LSU is still in great conversation with. They're still going to be pursuing over the next several weeks. I like the versatility that Relaford could be for you. I think he could probably add some weight once he gets here and be either a defensive end or maybe even switch into the defensive tackle and nose tackle kind of position as well. I mean, he's got a lot of versatility in his game. Very, powerful, strong kid. So we'll be very interested to see kind of what comes of that. But this was a great, visit just to get him and his family on campus, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Glenn, let's go on the field now. What do you make of this offense now that we've seen the consistency of it? 5 straight games, over 500 yards of production, 600 last time out. Jaden Daniels slaughtering the numbers as far as college football is concerned. Top duo, wide receivers, best run, a top running back. What do you make of this unit?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a lot of 2019 talk here this week. I know I've seen it on a number of different, programs, and certainly a lot of different articles. And I'm not ready to go 2019 good, but from a pure numbers standpoint, they're putting up the only comparable season that we've seen at LSU that compares to what we're seeing right now. Is that 2019 team. I mean, they are putting up some really, really stellar numbers. You mentioned that they're on the offset. I mean, but there's a realistic chance here that LSU could not only have a 4,000-yard passer, they could have 2 1,000-yard receivers and 2 1,000-yard rushers. And that's something that not even the 2019 team was able to do. I mean, I looked at the numbers again. I kind of threw it out there last week and said, it would be a little bit tough, but it could be doable. And then after another 100-yard rushing game and another 325-yard passing game from Jaden, they're right on track there. If they play 13, 14 games, I think they absolutely could get there. And I'd have to go and look throughout the history of college football, but I don't know that there's ever been an offense that has done that and been that prolific in a number of different areas. Been really impressed by the way that the run game's been coming along. I think Logan Diggs' emergence has really kind of helped open things up for this offense. The offensive line is playing at an extremely high level right now. Even when they lose a big guy like Emory Jones, you come in, you have Lance Hurd, and you score, I think, 4 touchdowns on 4 drives in the second half with Lance Hurd in there. So, I mean, like, the offense didn't skip a beat when you lose one of your big pieces up front. And then, of course, Jaden has been kind of the magician of all of this. He's been absolutely fantastic in the deep third of the field. And what's really allowed him to have, I think, so much success is not only the accuracy that he's throwing with on these deep passes, but when defenses are trying to take away Neighbors or trying to take away Thomas, he can run. I mean, like his legs have been really, really outstanding for LSU the last couple of weeks. And I think a lot of it has to do with defenses respecting the deep ball. It opens up the middle of the field, and that 35, 36-yard touchdown run that he had against Missouri a couple weeks ago, where he just kind of wove through the middle of the field and scored a touchdown. That is an absolute credit to the way that he's been throwing the ball of late, and being able to use his legs is kind of a compliment to that. So they're playing, they're executing at an extremely high level, and I honestly don't know if there's a defense out there, especially in the SEC, that would be able to slow them down.
Can the defense grow on this momentum? Can they be a defense that can serve or evolve into a trustable unit on that for what this offense is? It doesn't have to be much, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be much. I've been saying for several weeks now, if you can just get this defense to be average, just do the ordinary things, then I think you're going to like a lot of the results LSU has here over the next couple weeks. And I think this Auburn game last weekend was really a good taste of what this team could look like if they played total complementary football. If offense, defense, special teams are in unison for 4 quarters, then they can have a lot of results like this, and that includes the 1 and 2 weeks when you play Bama. I think if you have some of the consistency that you've seen over the last week and 2 quarters that you saw against Missouri from this defense, you're going to like your chances against anybody that you play the rest of the way in the regular season. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think the biggest thing here is that you've seen the defensive line and the front 7 grow a little bit. They have some consistency now in what they're doing scheme-wise, and they've rotated a pretty consistent personnel as well with the scheme that they're running. And so much of the first month of the season, it was just trying to find the right way for these guys to impact the game. And now that they've kind of settled in on this 4-man front, they've found a good spot for Harold Perkins. I think that you brought Pete Jenkins in as well, and I think that has made a difference. So a lot of the defensive linemen we've spoken to over the last couple of weeks have said that that's made a big difference for them. And so I think that they're getting better. I'm not gonna pump you full of happy thoughts here. I do think that there are still some concerns, especially in the secondary, that you gotta see when you play Bama and when you play a Florida or an A&M later this year. But I like the direction they're heading. I think that they're if you can just get them to be competent and just get them to be average or ordinary, the offense is going to take care of the rest, and you're going to win a lot of games.
One more in recruiting, G, before I get you out of here. Should we read into this Drelon Miller decommitment from A&M after a visit to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, so he's going to keep things open. I mean, I think he's got a visit planned to Colorado here on November 11th. I think Georgia's still in the mix there with him, a couple other schools as well. LSU certainly has the momentum here. I mean, coming off the visit from last weekend, I don't think it was any coincidence that he decided to decommit after making the LSU visit. I think that he can now really kind of step back and really kind of keep his options open. But no doubt, I mean, LSU lost JoJo Stone, a commitment at receiver earlier this week as well. So no doubt LSU would love to replace, that with a top 60 guy, a top 7-8 receiver in our services right now. I mean, Drelon Miller is a really electric guy. I think he can see the way that this offense is rolling right now, that they would be able to mix him in well with what they have and some of the young pieces that they have on this offense already. So, I think LSU's certainly in the mix there, and we'll just have to see how the next couple weeks play out, particularly that visit to Colorado. But definitely like where LSU sits right now with him.
Glenn West, 247 at Glenn West 21 on social media is where you can find him and read their stuff over at 247.com. Great stuff. Good to see you, man. We'll talk again soon.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Jordy.
Thanks for tuning in to our premium LSU content right here on YouTube. If you want more of it, subscribe below.